my channel. Today's Monday, means it's a Cricut tutorial because that's what I do every Monday right here just for you guys. Today is also a design with me tutorial. Make sure you're letting me know in the comments anything else you want to see or learn how to do, whether it's on Adobe or Cricut Design Space or whatever. I am always trying to help you guys learn and become better Cricketers. So today we are doing the difference between weld, slice, group, and attach. So those are very simple, very basic, but they are tools that you need to learn how to use, and they are very needed when you are designing in Design Space. So let's get going, and if you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that now. Let's get going. Hey guys, welcome back to Design Space 3. Today I'm going to be talking about some very simple buttons. We're going to talk about these buttons down here. The slice, the weld, the attach, the flatten, and we're going to leave contour out for now because these are the four that are the most important to know what the difference is, as well as we're going to go into grouping and ungrouping. And obviously duplicate is pretty self-explanatory, but I just wanted to show you guys the difference between all four of those. So I'm just gonna start with two simple shapes, okay? And yeah, let's just go with two different shapes. So we're gonna make them two different colors. So when I have a design on my board and nothing about them is together, the Cricut picks this up as two different complete pieces, and then when I set the colors to two different colors, it's trying to tell the Cricut that I intend to cut this out of, let's make it a prettier color than gray, just because we're gonna be here for a second and we don't wanna look at gray. Okay, so say we've got this tealish color and this red, and we want to tell the Cricut that we're cutting this out of teal and we're cutting it out of red, so we eventually want to send it to the mat separately. So when we click make it and we have not done anything to these two pieces, what that does is it's gonna send it separately to two complete different mats because it's telling them I'm gonna load red vinyl here and teal vinyl here. We like to trick the system a little bit when we try to save time, but that's not what we're talking about today. So now we're gonna go into grouping. Now, say I wanna design this and I have a lot of pieces going on, so I wanna keep these together while I design. And I select both of them by either dragging over both of them or shift clicking both of them, and I click group. Now what this is gonna do is it's gonna keep it together while I'm designing. So say I have some text up here and I've got some things and I've got some doodads everywhere. This piece will at least stay together just because I want it to stay together for maybe sizing purposes. Maybe that's how I intend to overlay them when it comes to actually designing them. Now, it's a great resource for if that's the case. If I'm still planning to cut this out of green or teal and this out of red, but eventually want to layer them to make sure that I keep them the same size, I'm going to group them. However, if we go to make it, it's still going to send it to two different mats because grouping is actually just for the design's sake, okay? So now I'm going to ungroup them for the rest of the tutorial for as long as as far as I can tell. I'm gonna keep them ungrouped. But so the colors and the colors and the grouping is actually just for my visual reminder. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to cut this out of red or I have to cut this out of green or that I have to overlay them. It's just for design purposes. So that's what grouping and ungrouping does. A lot of times you'll bring in a project that's an SVG and they'll already be grouped and you want to ungroup them to move them around. But you'll notice when you send them to the mat, they all separate. That's why. Okay, so now let's talk about attaching. So let's send this heart to the back so we can see both of these really good. Move backwards. Okay, so we've got a heart and a star. Let's make this like this. So say we want to cut this heart and this star at the same time. What we're gonna do is we're gonna select both. So I like to drag over both. You can shift click both, and we're gonna attach them. And you'll notice that it changes the color of the star. Now, it might have made it teal. It usually makes it whatever the bigger shape is, or I'm not sure why it picks red. But now what it's telling it is when I attach it, they are together. They are not moving. So when I go to make it, it's gonna only send me to one mat and they're gonna keep it together. So what you're really gonna get is this heart with this star cut out of it. Okay, so that's why it turns to one color, because if they're attached, you can't cut it out of two different colors, because you're trying to tell the system that you want it to cut out of one color. You want them to stay on top of each other. You don't want them to be sent to a different map. Let's detach them so that we can talk about the other couple things. So now let's talk about welding. Welding is actually making the piece one complete continuous piece without cuts. So if I were to overlap this and select it all and weld it, the star is going to disappear completely because it's only going to pick up the largest pieces of it. So I'm going to just undo until we get our star back. Now if I were to put this star right here and select both and I weld it, it's going to take those inner pieces out and it's going to cut. Welding is really important when you're doing stuff like cursive text, because your little letters will become one complete solid path, and that's what you want. So welding actually takes two pieces and creates one large piece, depending on what the most outer part pieces of that design is. So I'm gonna undo that and I'm gonna show you what slice does. Now what slice does is, let's put this star here. I'm going to copy and paste these so I can show you just a couple different things. Now we could have started with a green star too. When you're slicing, it doesn't have to be the same color. It could be two different pieces. Now slicing is great for lots of different things, but I just want to show you the main concept of what slicing is. Slicing is really good for getting pieces out of a project that you don't want to use anymore, or it's really good for knockout text or creating different types of images. So I selected all of these, and you can only slice two things at a time. So I clicked slice, and what we get is we get our starting piece of the star stays, but then it cuts that piece out. So think of this as like a cookie cutter. So it's almost like I put a cookie cutter right on here, and I get the cookie part and I get the negative space. So just like if this were a cookie cutter and this were dough laid out, I would get that and I would get this piece. Now if I take the star over here, just like a cookie cutter, and I click slice, the cookie cutter doesn't have to be on top, it can be on bottom as well. So that's the difference between a cookie cutter. So you get this negative space. Now, but you'll notice since this was on the side, it's almost like a cookie cutter went through both pieces. Okay, so let me show you that again and explain to you why, if the patterns are off of, so if this is covering the whole thing, it's like a cookie cutter that's gonna go through and cut the lines. But if it's off, it's almost like a cookie cutter is gonna go through both of these. Okay, so I'm gonna do one with the star on top and the star on bottom, just so we can see that there's really no difference, or maybe there is, maybe I'll be surprised. Okay, so I'm gonna move this heart to the back, move backwards. Okay, so we're gonna slice these and see what happens. So let's pretend like a star cookie cutter came down on both of these and a heart cookie cutter came down on both of these, and it cut the star into these shapes and it cut the heart into those shapes. And then a star and a heart are gonna come down on this one as well. So basically, when you slice, it's taking this shape and it's cutting it out of both of the shapes. So because we had the heart already here, it's like the heart came down on this one, but it was already a heart, so it didn't slice anything out of that. And because it was already a star, there was no real overlapping lines, so it didn't do any of that fancy stuff. So now we've got that piece again, we've got this piece again, we've got this piece again, and we've got this piece again. So this is really fun for like if you want to do a word going through it. If you guys want to know, like my split monogram video is really helpful. That one kind of goes into how to like use text on this type of stuff. But for now, I just wanted to show you the difference between slicing, welding, attaching, and grouping. So now that these pieces are all separate, if I were to click make it, I know this project looks wacko, but all these little pieces are separate because they're not attached. Doesn't matter if we had them grouped or not, but I hope that makes sense to you guys. So I hope that it helped you understand what slice, weld, attach, and group and ungroup is. And if it did, make sure you give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below what else you guys would like to see. Come out with Cricut videos every Monday for you guys. So don't forget to click subscribe. Love you guys. Bye.